that barely accommodate multiple generations. This is a bounded space in terms of this is a bounded space in terms of the families being distant from the neighboring Tilak Vihar, which means that this has become an island of sorts, an isolated space wherein people have, and as has already been said, the women have had to largely fend for themselves here, with the second and the third generations coming, growing up with the sense of abandonment. So if anyone were to visit the space, they'd realize the degree of isolation. So यहाँ पे the people that we found, the people that we spoke to, continuously kept going back to this sense of deprivation, if one may refer to Tilak Vihar as, which then adds to their sense of frustration and anguish. So that is the first thing that I'd like to lay out about Tilak Vihar. Most families, of course, because there is this sense of shared trauma, and that is something that they have bonded over, but then there are daily wants and deprivations. For instance, there is this want of electricity, water, and other basic services and essentials that are not always provided by the authorities. The other part of our investigation took us to the cities of Amritsar and Chandigarh, wherein we met. In Amritsar, we met Jagdish Kaur, and in Chandigarh, we were able to liaise with Nirpreet Kaur. Both the women actually have, as has been rightly pointed out, unlike the women from these resettlement colonies, they have an acute sense of their rights. And again, but for them, the challenge is quite different. Unlike the families living in Tilak Vihar, their battle is both in terms of physical isolation, in the sense that there are these individual women in different cities fighting their own battles, which sets them apart from the women in Tilak Vihar and also Chandar Vihar, the neighboring Chandar Vihar, wherein they are able to fight as a group. There is also that element that we noticed. So once, if one were to go and speak to the families there, you would get a sense that there's a serious collective that has built in both Tilak Vihar and Chandar Vihar, which obviously cannot be the case in these isolated cities of the Punjab, wherein the families today find themselves settled. Another fact remains that there is this everyday sense of precarity that they have, because again, the title to the houses is not always transferred to these women or their families for that matter. So, for instance, we spoke to a couple of families who said that they don't have title to the house that they live in, which means that there is this constant possibility of them being evicted someday or the other. And of course, they have recounted instances wherein they have had run-ins with their neighbors, neighboring neighborhoods, people living in the neighborhoods, wherein there's very little sense of the trauma that they have gone through, which is why I initially referred to it as an island, Tilak Vihar, that there have been at least a couple of instances, one in 2005, after the Nanavati Commission had presented its report and the government at that time had presented its own EPR. These people were subjected in fact to taunts and other forms of jibes, which made them pretty tense. The sense of lingering trauma had in fact come back for a lot of these women, for their children who had now become young adults, that they might then be subject to further attacks. So to sum it up and to sum this discussion up, the space of Tilak Vihar today is not just a microcosm of the families who've been rehabilitated from various parts of the city, but it also expresses the genuine fears and anxieties that they have. And that has not gone away 41 years later. So there is this centrally located Gurdwara Shahida as they call it. So the moment you enter the space of the Gurdwara, at least when we enter, we were greeted by the sign that said justice denied. So I think that adequately sums up the space. Not just it is stuck in time, but it is also literally stuck in that very space, unable to move forward. So I just stop here, and then if you have